friends. So I am Effie McLaughlin, Interim University Dean for Research. I have been working in the Office of Research for about 10 years now, and I administer most of the internal funding programs, which this is one of them, and also do pretty much all of the research development programming too, which is also, this is an example of that. So I'm going to actually just throw up, I'm going to share my screen because I don't know if many of you have attended one of our Funding Fridays webinars in the past, but we're actually going to do a little bit of a different setup or organization, stage management, run of show than we normally do. Because we're talking specifically about the Public Interest Technology University Network Challenge Grant competition, and also Public Interest Technology University Network more generally. So welcome back to Funding Fridays. This is a very special bonus Funding Fridays webinar, and we're going to talk about the Public Interest Technology University Network, and I'm going to say Pitt-UN, or Andrian, what do I say? Is it Pitt-UN or Pitt-UN? What do you say?
You can say Pitt-UN.
Pitt-UN, good. Okay. Pitt-UN, I'm going to say Pitt-UN from here on out because otherwise that's a mouthful. And there is a challenge grant competition running that New America funds through various sources. And CUNY has been a member of the Pitt-UN since 2018. And this is the third year that we are participating in the challenge grant. And we have a very special guest this week, who is Andrian Soli, who is the director of the Pitt-UN network at New America, as well as two of our very own CUNY challenge grant winners, Katie Komaski and Susan Imberman, are also going to be presenting on their projects. So this webinar series is something that the Office of Research has been running since the spring. It was launched this fall. It was launched this past fall by Associate Vice Chancellor Tamara Schneider, who is in this meeting, as a way to provide targeted support for faculty as we navigate our new virtual reality, new virtual world, and also to provide research development and professional development support during this difficult time as we transition to different ways of doing research and thinking about our research and doing teaching and being in this world. So the goal of this webinar series is to create a living resource for research development support and information for all researchers across the university at all different levels and capacities. And so these webinars are being made available on the Office of Research website. So we will post this webinar here, which also is a way of saying that this webinar is being recorded. So if you are not comfortable having your face in a recording that will live forever, please don't turn your camera on. So I'm actually amazed to find that we're nearing the end of our 2020-2021 Funding Friday season. We have one more webinar coming up on June 1st, which is being hosted by Megan Wacha, which is boosting your scholarly profile online, and you hopefully will be getting emails about that soon. And also we are busily planning our season for the 2021-22 year. And also I'll be sending out an invitation soon for those of you who are interested. We are hosting a series of NIH grant writing workshops, which are going to be run by Michelle Keeley, who's the Associate Dean for Research at the School of Public Health, and we'll be sending a notice out about that soon. And also, I encourage all of you to reach out to me if you have, any ideas, suggestions, things that ways that you would like to receive professional development support in terms of grant writing and grant prospecting and things like that, and grant opportunities. So I'd also like to introduce my colleague, Ron Nerio, who's going to help me. He is a director of research programs in the Office of Research. He runs the CUNY Research Scholars Program, and he's going to be helping me sort of stay on time and monitor the chat. And I might also already be over time. So housekeeping, here is the run of show. So I'm going to be quiet very soon. Andrian and Katie are going to have a conversation about the mission and aims of Pitt-UN initiative and talk about CUNY's contribution and place within the Pitt-UN mission. I'm going to talk a little bit about the challenge grant white paper competition, which is on our website. And then we're going to take a few questions sort of in the middle of the webinar in case stuff comes up for you and you have sort of burning questions to ask Andrian or Katie or me about the challenge grant itself or about Pitt-UN itself. And then Susan Imberman is going to present her Pitt project that she did on open educational resources, and Katie's going to present her intentional learning community Pitt project. And then hopefully we'll leave about 15 minutes at the end for open question and answer. Okay, so I'm going to stop share this. Boop. And I am going to spotlight Andreen, and I'm going to spotlight Katie. Okay, go.
Excellent.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just say, I'm sorry, I meant to introduce you. So, Andreen Soley, as I had mentioned before, is director of the Public Interest Technology University Network at New America. She joined New America in 2018 after 20 years of experience working with higher education and the nonprofit sector. And most importantly, from our perspective, which I always like to point out, is that in the early 2000s, from 2001 to 2005, she was the director of the Educational Workforce Development Programs at the JFK Junior Institute for Worker Education, which is now based at CUNY SBS. And apparently, I was just chatting with her and I found out that she was actually in the ground floor of developing the School Professional Studies, which has been one of our most sort of successful schools, particularly in this time, since they run most of our online education or many of our online educational programs. And then also Katie Komaski is going to be speaking now, and she is a professor of psychology and women and gender and sexuality studies at the College of Staten Island. And Susan Imberman will speak at the end, who's an associate professor of computer science at the College of Staten Island. Thank you so much, Andreen and Katie, and please tell us more about Pitt.
Great. Thank you so much, Effie. And Andreen, welcome. Welcome
Thank you.
back to CUNY. And, you know, I have really appreciated our partnering in this incredible new exciting area called Pitt, which probably not many people have heard of yet, but we're, you know, responsible for that because it is a brand new burgeoning, developing field. And so I just thought maybe we could start there with having you really defining from a New America's perspective what the motivation was for engaging in this field building project related to Pitt. So where did we start, right, in terms of how New America saw what Pitt, the need for Pitt or what Pitt is, and then maybe how has this evolved as you've learned things from, you know, the work that we're doing as part of the Pitt UN network.
Thank you so much for that introduction, and I'm happy to be back at CUNY. I used to work at the central office at 80th Street, and then moved to the one at 31st. So, and I miss New York a bit because I'm actually based out of in the West Coast. So I think in terms of New America's work, we have sort of a common understanding of the problem that we think that public interest technology can help us tackle, which is essentially that there are too few folks with technical skills that exist in government, and then even fewer folks who have a really good mix of technical skills and policy-oriented knowledge. Similarly, the same thing exists in civil society. And if you do have technical skills and you are working in a nonprofit setting, often you're sort of siloed and thought of as just IT. You're not really considered someone that can help execute mission. And so we believe that technologists, if technologists existed in these two places, that they could help government processes work better, be more responsive to citizens' needs. We also believe that we could improve policymaking around technology, which is, I think it's best if you understand the intricacies of technology so that you can have an impact on regulating tech, as well as possibly impacting the design of new technology. The other piece is that we think that maybe technology can help execute policy goals that the government may have. And in many ways, that's something that a lot of people recognize from the work that comes out of New America, is that we're always thinking about how a technological sort of orientation can help helping government delivery. So I think many of you may know that a couple of my partners have just released a book, Power to the Public, The Promise of Public Interest Technology, which really takes a deep dive in the approaches to using data to help improve service delivery. That's one aspect of the public interest technology story that I think gets a lot of mileage, and I think it's a great thing. But the other piece of that is that we also believe that if we had technologists who had a real intimate understanding of the intersection of tech and policy, that they could also help within the nonprofit space as well, which is that I think they will be able to, oftentimes regulatory moves come from the nonprofit side, pushing on government to be better. And so a better understanding of the technology, I think, would also help it in that endeavor as well. So for us, when I started this work of pulling the network together or beginning to even think about how to engage universities in this space, I pulled together a bunch of folks who had spent time working in government, but then also came from the nonprofit space and also came from the higher ed space. And we said, what is this thing? What is this mix of skills that we what is this like mix of skill that I think is necessary for public interest technology? So let's define it. Like let's put some boundaries around this. And so what we decided at the end of the day is a pretty formal sounding definition, which is public interest technology is the study and the application of technology expertise to promote the public good. You believe that technologists exist in the private sector to promote a particular, maybe commercial interest. But for us, the question is, how might that same orientation be applied to generating generating public good? Generating the kinds of impact that we want to see in the world. Not that technology is meant to solve that problems, not at all, not a sort of techno solution approach, but really how might technology enhance and make better opportunities that are available for helping to work on homelessness issues or whatever the issues might be. But the other part of it that for us is important is who's in that conversation. When you hear the term public interest technologist, the tendency is to land only on the technologist part, which is your computer scientist, your engineer, your user researchers, all of those terms that sort of immediately triggers in your mind. But for us, the definition is also meant to include those folks who think about the impact of tech. And so that's where we see the role of folks who are lawyers, social scientists, ethicists, and this is the policy folks. We hope that public interest technology is the space where those groups of people come together and engage in dialogue with each other. And so I think what we're seeing quite a bit now is all of the conversation around bias. Those are public interest technologists. They're the ones that have been thinking about the negative impact of technology, and in many ways, impacts that should have been anticipated by technologists who were crafting and shaping technological innovation, right? But we think that if we can create a space for those two groups to be in dialogue with each other, we might be better off in the future. And so that is kind of our intention with the field, is to create a space both within academia and outside, but for our purposes, we're talking about academia right now, where disciplines engage with each other. So an engineering student who has an interest in social work should be able to figure out a way to put those two desires together. An African-American studies student should be able to explore the intersection of African-American studies and tech, or engineering or data science. Those are the kinds of intersections that we think are possible if we begin to think about public interest technology in a certain way.
Excellent, thank you. And through my project, I'm also adding sculptors and actors.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but also just not giving short shrift to the creatives.
No, not at all.
I know that that's something that you care about as well. I know CUNY was a part of the Pitt UN network from its inception, and I know that you probably have a very soft spot in your heart for CUNY. But what makes you excited about CUNY being a part of this network? Because I know I don't know if you want to talk about some of the other institutions that are in the network, but CUNY kind of sets itself apart from a lot of the other places in the network. So can you speak to us a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, what I thought was really valuable is you have a tremendously diverse population of students. And I think as a public institution, overall, lots of different things go on at CUNY, but there's an underlying public mission, right? And so it really makes sense to me that this is the perfect intersection, which is thinking about the folks who are most marginalized within the tech sector, the folks that have been detrimentally impacted by the tech sector when we have not taken into consideration the sort of historical impact and continuing impact of new technological innovations, right? CUNY just feels like a great space for us to have that conversation, right? Our students can introduce a kind of language around tech that often isn't in the conversation. Your faculty members do really fascinating research. One of the projects that we funded, they're not here, but it's actually a partnership between Columbia and Lehman College, which is looking at how data scientists can contribute to working on really systemic problems that are enduring in the city. So those are the kinds of things that I envision that CUNY would be a part, would be able to bring to the table. That fantastic public mission, the history of CUNY's founding, and sort of this, I just think it's a nice mix, right? Because in some ways you'd want to almost think of CUNY as like public interest education, right? And so I think it's just a natural place for Pitt to thrive. And I've been excited to see some of the work that's come out of the challenge, but also just other things that are going on around CUNY. And also, just be honest, it's a urban hub, right? And also really reflective of the different parts of the city. And so that's what I like about it as well, is that there can be a sort of place-based element based on where your campus lies, right? And who the student population is at that campus. And so the opportunity to engage different groups of students and different faculty members seems ripe at CUNY as well.
As you know, somebody who's versed in tech as well as in social issues and public policy, you know, the ground is always shifting beneath our feet. And, of course, there's pressure even from the tech development side to stay relevant and to stay on top of developments as they occur. And I feel that that kind of movement in what we're doing together too, in collaboration to building this field. So in reflection of year one, now into year two, like, and because we're here talking about the new challenge initiative and the new challenge grants, where are you at in terms of either what's happening right now, like where you're at in the position, in the situation of what's occurring right now, or if you want to do a little thinking forward of like, what is year three looking like for us as part of the network, as part of the challenge grant, et cetera?
Sure. So let me just ground it a little bit in sort of why even have a university network and therefore be able to look back. And so part of that is we think that educational institutions can offer a couple of things for the higher ed space and for public interest tech specifically, which is the question for students. You can answer a couple of questions for students, which are, what is the career pathway in Pitt? What courses should I take? What's that blend that's going to let me leave school with the right mix of skills and experiences? And then also, what are some of the incentives that we can work together to create so that civil society, nonprofit, and government can compete with the private sector for students? The other piece is then, where can you find job opportunities? And that sometimes is going to come through the relationships that you establish by trying to answer number two. At the department level, really the question is a big challenge, which is sort of how do you demonstrate the value of applying social and policymaking thinking to a traditional curriculum, right? So how are you going to weave that in? How are you going to develop faculty members so that they feel comfortable tackling a sort of multidisciplinary curriculum, which is exactly what we said is needed. And then most important is, how do you think about the incentive structures that will allow faculty members to focus on that work? So if getting tenure is not connected or aligned with some of those elements, what are we going to do about that? How do we build and grow the field if we don't answer that question? So there are incentive issues for students, but there are also incentive issues for faculty members as well. And then from an institutional perspective, which is the other piece that CUNY brings to the table, is who are going to be the leaders of this, who are going to champion it, who's going to sort of offer up models of what's working and what's possible in the space. And then also, how are you going to increase, and this is the thing, rubber meets the road, money. How are you going to increase administrative and staff capacity to do Pitt, right? In some ways, we're asking you to work against the grain, which is not to stay within your discipline, not to stay within silos, but to find opportunities to connect with each other across these really interesting questions, right? Because one of the ways that we think about Pitt that's really exciting is thinking about putting a problem in the center and allowing other disciplines to participate in trying to define and work towards finding solutions. That's not something that's going to be possible if we don't sort of create infrastructure internally within our institution for that. And so in some ways, the Public Interest Technology Challenge is an opportunity for us to sort of incentivize some of those kinds of projects. How do you offer up some models of what a curriculum might look like, what the infrastructure might need to be for faculty members to work together? How how might we identify faculty members who are working at these intersections and are not being punished in sort of receiving tenure? And I feel like there's a heavy weight in this conversation because there's a tenure conversation going on with Nicole Hannah-Jones and UNC. But those are big questions, right? Those are really important questions about who has impact in making decisions about who are going to be seen as leaders in the space. And so how much power can we have there? And so the network members all agree to participate in thinking through 5 field building areas, which really actually align quite nicely with the priority areas that you see in the challenge grant. So educational offering, which is a priority area, is really connected to field building area 1, which is supporting curriculum and faculty development. The other piece is career pipeline and placement, priority area in the grant. So that is really about how are you developing experiential opportunities for students, as well as for faculty members too, right? Because faculty and students are part of that dialogue with each other in terms of their own careers, right? And so, so for years 1 and 2, Years 1 and 2 were really, let's seed some projects. Let's seed some projects across these areas. And then let's figure out what's been successful across some of these projects. And now let's think deeply about how we might begin to institutionalize some of the projects, and how we might actually begin to work with our network of funders and alumni to help support some of those endeavors, because we understand the network challenge is it's a small fund, it's a meaningful fund, but it's still small. And so we think of it as a kind of experimental fund. Test out models that you thought would work. And we're excited to see what happens with the models. If it does, it's an experiment. It doesn't all have to work exactly as you outlined it. But we're trying to think about, how do you do this interesting mix? How do you develop the students with the kind of fluency that we talked about at the very beginning? That's not a guarantee. And so I'd like to think of year 3 as the year where we take a look back, evaluate our progress thus far, and think about what we need to institutionalize. And as you all listen to Susan's project, and the work that she's done, the question for me automatically is, who's using some of this material? How are they using it? What can we learn from that? And so that's an interesting potential follow-up. So that's where we are in year 3. Let's look back. And we were all interrupted in year 2 by COVID. So, so a lot of actually year 1 projects, which were funded in 2019, are actually finally finishing this year. So that's a reason for us to sort of pause a bit. We're still having year 3 challenge, but we're pausing and we're reflecting. And you may see some changes in years 4, moving forward, taking some of the key lessons that we've learned.
All right. Thank you so much, Katie and Andreen. We will, for all of you participating, we will have opportunities to talk more with Andreen and Katie. But I just wanted to keep us moving along. I just want to do a brief introduction of the white paper so you know where to find it on our site. And I'm going to remove your spotlight. And I am going to, how do I remove your spotlight? Oh, poop.
I did it already. I'm sorry. I jumped ahead and I helped you out. And
you already removed the spotlight. Oh, cool. Okay, excellent. All right, so I am now going to share my screen. Share. Okay. So this is the Office of Research website, and I don't know how many of you faculty members, staff, faculty, researchers at CUNY regularly go to the Office of Research website. We're currently in the process of sort of reorganizing the website, so I would encourage you to visit it if you haven't done so recently. We are also, I should say, we're building a dedicated Pitt UN website. We're building that this summer. So all of this is going to be located in one place. So all the faculty at CUNY that are engaged with Pitt UN, that have worked with Susan and Katie, Susan's project, Katie's project, we're probably going to link to the Pitt UN Twitter feed. We're going to try to put as much information about the university network and what's going on at CUNY as we can on that website. But that's hopefully going to happen over the summer, but it'll definitely be up and running by the fall semester. But for the time being, if you look at, so the Public Interest Technology University Network is an externally funded program, and it's also a limited submission. And let me just tell you what I want to say is, why is this a limited submission funding opportunity? And the reason why this is a limited submission funding opportunity is because CUNY, as a network partner, is only permitted to submit 3 new proposals. So I definitely encourage all of you that are interested in pursuing this to apply. And what we have is, we have a process in place. We have a executive/planning committee for public interest technology, of which I'm a member because I'm the CUNY Pitt UN liaison. Katie is also on the committee. Associate Vice Chancellor Schneider, Associate Vice Chancellor for Research, Tamara Snyder, who's also on this call, is on the committee. Did I say Katie? Susan and Katie are on the committee. Also, former Interim Vice Chancellor Dan McCloskey is on the committee. We have representatives from the Public Interest Law Division of the CUNY School of Law. We've got people from Workforce Development that are helping us with our pipeline and career placement piece of this. So these proposals will be reviewed by an internal committee, and we will select the top 3. And the first thing I want to say, I'm going to put on my grants officer hat for just a minute. The first thing that is most important about this that you need to do is you need to read the PDF, which is linked on this page. And it is an incredibly rich and useful and comprehensive document, and everything that you need to know about applying for the Public Interest Technology University Network is in the PDF, in terms of the justifications, what they're looking for, how to target your projects. I mean, they go over the different types of, they're looking for internship projects, career training projects. They're looking for projects that involve community partners. There is explicitly, maybe for our purposes, they are looking for projects that focus on research, curriculum development, teaching, and service work that builds out public interest technology as an arena of inquiry and training. So definitely they are looking for research grants and data collection grants. Excuse me. So, but as I said, I'm not going to be able to go through the whole PDF with you, but what I do want to do, so that is the reason why it is a limited submission. So there's an internal competition process first, and then the top 3 candidates or the top 3 selected proposals will be sent on to New America for review, and hopefully we will get some winners. And also I should mention, I mean, Susan and Katie as year 1 and year 2 winners are allowed to resubmit. So we'll be submitting more than 3, but there are only 3 new proposals allowed. And I do want to say that there are different in terms of funding profile for these proposals. We are allowed up to 3 proposals, and the funding, you can have proposals that have budgets of up to $45,000, up to $90,000, and up to $180,000. But I will say to you, also in my grants officer's hat, that we are only allowed to submit 1 proposal that is between the $91,000 and $180,000 range. So when you're developing these proposals, please be very mindful about how you structure your program and sort of what is reasonable, you know, in terms of the scope of your program. You know, so sort of have a plan B. I mean, I know that a lot of times our tendency is just, you know, ask for as much money as you can. But, you know, sometimes what we have done in the past when we've done these funding programs is that we've selected what we thought to be a really great, strong proposal. But since we were only allowed to submit 1 at the 180K range, the 91 to 180K range, we asked people to reduce their budget. So I'm just saying that, you know, just be mindful about how you develop your program and the scope of your program. I do want to click on, so for the purposes of the internal selection process, we created a submissions portal, which for any of you that have applied for any of our other internal grant programs should be familiar to you. But so most of the elements that are in the full Pitt UN proposal that we submit to New America are on this site. However, there's a few pieces that aren't necessarily, that are more sort of data collection pieces, diversity statement, you know, timeline planning, sort of things that we don't include in this white paper process because it's not necessary in terms of reviewing the strength of your proposal. So, which is also why we make the internal deadline July 11th. The internal deadline is July 11th, full submission I'm sorry, I said that wrong. June 11th. The internal submission deadline is June 11th, and the New America submission deadline is July 15th. So we're allowing a good amount of time to revise, you know, choose the best proposals, and then also give you some time to revise them before you submit them. And we will hopefully we'll be giving you some feedback in terms of how to improve the proposals that we have chosen to be submitted. So this is what you can see. Oh, I'm sorry. You guys can see this, right? You can see the form stack portal? Okay, good. I just never know what I'm sharing in terms of my screen share. So that's basically all I want to say. I don't know if I went over time, but I'm going to stop now, and we're going to have a brief, since Katie and Andreen spoke a bit about sort of the Pitt more generally, and this is the challenge grant sort of internal competition. I'm going to stop share here, and then we are going to have just a brief question and answer. So if any of you have any questions for Andreen or Katie or me about Pitt or about the challenge grant, we can ask them now, and then we're going to turn it over to Katie and Susan to talk about their projects. So if there's any questions. Oh, so Andreen mentioned in the chat that they're going to be hosting a funders conversation. Oh, okay. So, to talk through how to support projects that don't make the cut for the network challenge. That's a great opportunity. Thank you, Andrea. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
That's actually just a sort of designee conversation for you
Okay. All right.
to help you think through that a little bit, because we understand that not it's a limited submission, and you might be able to combine projects, but we also are aware that the funding landscape needs to support some of the work. And so that's just an opportunity for us to pull the designees and the leaders of the network together and talk through other opportunities that might be available and other funders who are kind of in the public interest tech space.
Okay. Well, I don't see, unless I missed some questions. Ron, did I
think
miss
there's a
any
Zoya
questions?
with her hands raised.
Yeah.
Correct.
His or her,
Oh,
sorry.
sure.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Sorry for misgendering.
Hi, how you doing? I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes. Yes.
I submitted a similar grant last year with the similar deadline. Would I be able to resubmit it with some corrections? Do you think it's a good idea or not?
Sure, we absolutely encourage you to resubmit. I mean, as I said, it's, we can only choose 3 proposals, and hopefully we provided you with some feedback last year, but we definitely encourage people resubmissions if you didn't make the final cut in the last 2 years.
Yeah, I didn't get any feedback. The only thing, it was unfortunately that it didn't go through, it wasn't chosen. So is there any way to get a feedback from last year, maybe, if I resubmit it? How do I go about it?
I would have to go back and look last year at the comments. I mean, we have a review process, and we have a rubric, and we have the reviewers submit comments. I would have to go back and look to see what the comments were from last year. But also, the other thing that I would really encourage you to do is, I mean, and Susan and Katie, I hope this is okay, and I'll also make myself available. I mean, one of the things that Pitt encourages us to do is to collaborate. I mean, to work across schools, to work with our colleagues, to reach out to the community. So, I mean, I would definitely, again, I don't remember your proposal, but to the extent
I
that
would
you,
love to do that.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
I mean, it would be great if you could get other collaborators within CUNY, because that would also be a great way to, sort of vet your ideas and get feedback on your proposal. I mean, figure out a way to be really collaborative about this within CUNY. So, I mean, that would be another good way to get
It's just
feedback.
very time pressing to get somebody last minute, but I'll think about it. And that's a very good point. Thank you so much for your advice.
Sure.
And Effie, I hope I'm not overstepping here, but Andreen's point, I think we've taken very seriously from the very beginning, which is like, for every cycle of this, we kind of see how the proposals hang together. And if there is that opportunity, if based on the submissions that there seems to be some natural synergy between proposals, I think at that stage we could, offer that as an option too, like in terms of how the proposals hang together. As part of the proposal process, you have to kind of create like a little bit of an elevator pitch. So if you want to send that to me, I'm happy to, to give you some feedback. And
that would be excellent.
All right. I'll put my email address in the chat.
That would be great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
And Zoya, happy to do the same. So you can email me as well.
I'm sorry, because I'm on my phone and I'm in the car. If you can put that in the chat, or that would be great, so I can just see it. Thank you so much.
Great. I will also
I was-
try
I was
to,
gonna say if you could send a follow-up, Effie, to everybody that registered with
yeah,
that
no,
info,
we
yeah.
definitely will. I'll send you your emails. Also, maybe we'll try to link to the limited submissions page. We'll put up the who's the executive and planning committee so people know who to reach out to. Um, Great. I actually think I went over time. I have violated my lovely run of show. I am going to, I'm not sharing anymore. So Susan, are you ready to present your project?
I surely am. So I'm going to share my screen, which it's not doing. There it goes. Okay. All right. So my project was titled Curricular Design and Public Interest Tech using OER. I have several co-PIs on this. Ann Fiedler, who is at the Library Services, Devorah Kletnick at Brooklyn College, Deborah Sturm at CSI, and Karen Shelby at Baruch. But first, I asked the question, why open educational resources or OER? Why was this significant? And so I would like to first go over kind of what OER is, if you're not familiar. So OER is any type of free and openly licensed course content, and we usually associate with the Commons license that tells others how to use your work and how to share your work. So it allows people to take your work, modify it, reuse it, and share it back at the community. And to do that, we usually follow what's called the 5 R's of openness. These were originally defined by David Wiley. And retain by sharing, you still, and using these Creative Commons license, you still retain your copyright and intellectual property rights. Reuse, we put it out there so others can use, and you may want to reuse your work. Revise, other people can take your work, change it, update it, and share it back. Remix, you can take other people's work and incorporate it into your own and then make it again available to the community. And that's called our redistribute. And what I love about OER is it allows us to create living artifacts. And especially in an area such as Pitt, which is very broadly defined, we are able to take curriculum created, and as the ground shifts, as Katie said, we can look at what we've created and update and reshare. OER at CUNY was motivated, which is a national trend actually, by rising textbook costs. So these shows you the textbook course in orange as compared to college tuition and fees in blue and all school-related costs in black. And these numbers have been normalized to show you that the extent of the rise in textbook has outstripped the other two significantly over the past years of 2006 to 2016. We've also seen that OER contributes to student success. I'm sure many of you had the experience where your students don't have the textbooks and never bought the textbooks, usually due to their high cost. The other problem has to do with financial aid. Even though they might get financial aid to purchase books, the actual monies may not be available until several weeks into the semester. And it's been empirically shown that student success is highly correlated with having the materials that they need available day one. Classes that utilize texts that are no cost have been shown to give better student performance, and texts created under OER have been shown to save students significant amounts of money. And so this was part of the review on CUNY zero textbook cost courses and their first year of our funding from New York State and OER. And we've had a huge impact. In the year 2017-2018, that 1 year alone, $9.5 million was saved for CUNY students. And as of 1 year ago, this is where I last had this stat, collectively over the course of the OER projects in CUNY, over $40 million in textbook costs have been saved. And I love to quote Katie on this because Katie put it quite succinctly, OER is Pitt. And with that, my project was motivated by the fact that I have faith in my colleagues, that they're creative, conscientious, and in short, excellent pedagogues. And in my previous and ongoing OER projects, I've done a number of projects to motivate more creation of OER curriculum. We did a CS0 for all CUNY OER, which we wanted to make sure that CUNY students had an opportunity to take a general education computer science course. We wanted to show that it's not just CS, that there's CS and other disciplines that can employ tech. And we did also this through our Tech in Residence Core program, where we've had industry professionals come to teach at CUNY classrooms and share the curriculum that they had, so that we have industry-informed curriculum available to other CUNY faculty. From these projects, we have had 66 pieces of curriculum resources for our CS for All group, 125 pieces of curriculum and resources for our Tech in Residence Core. And essentially, it takes a village to create and share curriculum. So for our Pitt On project, we sent an RFP CUNY-wide, but we first felt we needed to define public interest tech. So we looked at the various definitions. New America said it's leveraging technology to support the public interest organizations and the people they serve. Technology used to serve the public good was one definition from the Ford Foundation. And Carnegie Mellon Heinz College said that it involves ethics, public policy, societal consequences, privacy, among other topics. Sorry. But my overall interpretation is we do good and we don't do any harm. But the big question is, how do you get faculty to buy into this? What do you do? And I remember it being at one of the quick Pitt convenings, and that was asked over and over again, how do we get faculty to do this? What do we do? And my answer was, well, you pay them. You show that you value their time. So what we did was we paid them. We had various levels of participation available. For $1,000, give us one unit of course material that you can incorporate in an existing course. We required 2 weeks or 6 hours worth of instructional time. We offered $3,000 if you wanted to create a new course or redesign an existing course. We offered $10,000 for the creation of a track within a major or some interdisciplinary major or minor. And then we also encouraged collaboration between technology-based courses and humanities courses that together would complement each other and address a Pitt topic. These are some of the titles of our various projects, and you can see they ran the gamut from chemistry to physics to video and media, all over the board, from ethics. You know, we did not necessarily just have tech folk, we had people from many, many disciplines participating in the project. We submit all our OER materials to CUNY Academic Works, which is the university repository for OER. To date, we've had 42 submissions, and we have more pending because as the semester has ended, we have more people who are uploading their own creations. But the statistics that I just got is that as of just the other day, we've had 2,200 downloads across 96 different countries. We've also created a Pitt site on OER Commons, which is a place where a lot of people go to search for OER. And I've encouraged the people who participate in our college just to link their materials there. It links back to our CUNY Academic Work so we can get the stats on it. So this is the end of my slide. Again, no animals were created in the creation of the slide, although that looks like that poor cat was squished by the couch.
Thank you, Susan. I just want to apologize to my speakers and everyone in the meeting. We're actually running about 10 minutes behind schedule, which I think is largely my fault. But Katie, if you could present, I mean, we could definitely run a little bit over. Anyone that has to leave the meeting obviously can. I will be here to answer questions. And also, obviously, you can reach all of us by email if you have follow-up questions. So Katie, would you like to present your project, please?
No pressure, no pressure, right?
Just keep it snappy.
Oh gosh, where am I? Are you seeing? Yes, you're seeing my PowerPoint. Are you seeing my PowerPoint?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry. Just if my computer would work for me here. Oh no, I have this spinning. Okay, here we go. Okay. Hi, Katie, Reverend Dr. Katie Komaski. I'm, in addition to being a professor in psychology and women, gender, and sexuality studies at the College of Staten Island, I've also been appointed the academic coordinator of CSI St. George, which is an extension of our campus on the North Shore of Staten Island, and with an intended goal to help us fulfill our mission as a university and as a college of encouraging access and equity to a broad range of students. And we noticed that students on the North Shore of Staten Island were having difficulty accessing our campus, which is in the sort of middle of the borough. And because of our poor infrastructure related to public transportation, we decided to actually return to our original home of Richmond College and have a site on the North Shore directly across from the ferry terminal. I start out by talking about this because this site is also really helping to shape what the future is of the College of Staten Island and kind of really engage in the conversation of the intersections between workforce development in the 21st century, creating clear pipelines into the workforce alongside valuing access to public higher ed. And these goals, institutional goals, fit quite nicely into the call for proposals and being part of the Pitt UN network. So I title my talk "Calling All Innovators, Influencers, and Activists," because this is the call that I put out to sort of court students who wouldn't necessarily see themselves as technologists, but yet still heavily reliant and engaged with technology in their daily lives into coursework, their general education coursework that would then have a focus on public interest tech as our faculty and students were defining it. So one of the goals of my project is to build a diverse tech talent pipeline. As I was saying, that we are located at the St. George extension of our college, and my project has engaged a cohort of 24 incoming first-year students who were recruited from 4 area feeder high schools. These high schools, we considered feeder high schools right into our site, and being that they're located within commuting distance of our campus on the St. George, in the St. George community. And what's unique also about these 4 feeder high schools is that they're 70% BIPOC students there, and also 67% of these students would be considered economically disadvantaged. Our 24 students participated in pre-college paid summer workshop series that really focused on college readiness and helping to introduce them to how we were defining tech in the public interest. They were all matriculated into CSI for fall 2020, taking the majority of their general education courses together in their entire first year. So they actually had 8 courses over the 2 semesters together. We built this as an intentional learning community focused on Pitt. We partnered with faculty, and also we had the advantage of having a relationship with our tech incubator, CSI's own tech incubator. As I mentioned, all of our courses in the first year had a focus on Pitt, and alongside encouraging students to participate in some synergistic events that were hosted by the tech incubator, as well as they participated in the Pitt UN convening and other events that were hosted by New America. And I'm proud to report that 17 of my 24 students are slated to have successfully completed their first year. Of course, they're in the midst of finals, so let's keep them in our thoughts. And all 17 of these students are now registered for next fall, so they will be continuing on into their second year at CUNY. As Susan mentioned, I saw OERs being critical to our success. And so we also partnered with Susan on her project. I was, generously funded for year 2 to continue the work. So some of the highlights for year 2 is that we're engaging more community partners to develop more community-based Pitt projects. This is how kind of COVID slammed into our project, in that our community partners, even our high school partners, were overly taxed by having to shift their priorities and how they serve their community. Our students also were struggling to kind of gain some footing around what it meant to be a college student. And so we were really focused on providing wraparound supports for our students in their first year to support their academic and personal successes. Many of my students had challenges related to stuff going on in their families, and really things related to their housing, food insecurity, and just general mental and physical, other kinds of physical health ailments. So we provided a lot of support for them. In the second year, students are going to earn a marketable tech skill in partnership with the CSI Tech Incubator in January of 2022. We're currently building, when I say we, me and the Tech Incubator are building a brand new curriculum focused on UI UX. And it's going to be one of the only in the country that will be teaching UI UX from a Pitt perspective. And we're prioritizing, including ensuring that we have BIPOC representation in Pitt in terms of who the participants will be involved in this, as well as who the trainers will be. I'm developing 2 new courses in year 2, one focused on digital media leadership and public policy. And in the spring, next spring, all the students will be engaged in a Pitt internship course. We're also going to be working with the CUNY BA program to actually build a BA degree in public interest tech. And, just a few things we're doing. And we're creating a student club that would support our peer mentorship model that we have as part of the intentional learning community that's focused on Pitt. And right now we're currently working on doing this in partnership with Howard University, because we want to stand out as a student club that's focused on equity issues as relates to technology. And my hope is that by June 2022, the majority of our students will have earned their associate's degree, having taken the majority of their courses in Pitt, with a Pitt focus. So what are some of our findings from year 1 is that the pandemic allowed for us to make Pitt central to how we formed community through mediated communication. So every technology that we used, every challenge that we faced sort of had a tech focus, right? As well as utilizing and leveraging the power of technology to form community bonds and to form peer mentoring relationships that we're going to carry into year 2. I forgot to tell you that I'm also recruiting a brand new cohort of students from which these year 2 students will actually be mentors to. So some of the infrastructure that we built, especially how the role that tech can be used to support academic success for non-traditional students is going to be something that's central to what we're doing. And we really engage the assets of the students to encourage buy-in to public interest tech. So we met the students where they were in terms of cultivating an interest in Pitt based on things that they were already interested in. So as I was saying to Andrian earlier, we have students that are interested in gaming, game design, they're digital music artists, they're social justice activists, they're community organizers, and that they leverage their skills and talents in social media and web design. They also have an entrepreneurial spirit. And so I kind of met the students where they're at, and they're really interested in now cultivating their education around how do we leverage technology for the public good. We're centering our discourse on anti-racist and anti-poverty movements and integrated into our pedagogy as we leverage tech skills to support locally driven solutions to social injustices. So in year 2, really trying to reach out to some community partners, especially related to the internship course, and kind of move us into a model of how we can institutionalize, creating almost like a community lab space where we can invite community partners in to help us, and so that we can help them kind of find solutions to issues that they're contending with as it relates to housing, development, redlining, food insecurities, food deserts, climate justice. Those are some of the things that are emerging as where we may focus on our work in the internship sites in year 2. So Pitt has provided this interdisciplinary venue to really drive workforce development for a 21st century post-pandemic world. In my report on my findings from year 1, I'm really trying to help us as an institution reconstruct definitions of academic success beyond GPA to operationalize critical skills that especially those who have to survive in this workforce might need as it relates to persistence, peer support networks, and the cultivation of vocational identity. The other thing too is just like really situating myself with the students and learning from the students. Some of the skills that and the gifts that students from underserved communities and economically disadvantaged contexts bring to us is the ways in which they navigate systems that are dead set against, having them readily access them. And I feel like this is something that the tech world can benefit from, having really creative minds that are already sort of hardwired towards problem solving, and also very attuned to the ways in which systems can be set up to exclude those who may come from underserved areas in our worlds. So I think that's what I wanted to share with you all today. And
thank you so much, Katie. We have just about 4 minutes left. We can take some questions. I mean, I guess I don't know. I mean, I know all of our time is very tight, but I mean, anyone that needs to leave can. I don't know, Katie and Andrea and Susan, if you could stay on for a few minutes. Please, if you have any questions, type them in the chat. We did have one question, Andreen, for you. One of our faculty members, Bonsai, asked if he could reach out to you directly, and I just wasn't quite sure because I know that you work closely with Alberto, and I just wasn't sure if you answered questions. Sort of, if somebody wanted to reach out to New America, who would be the appropriate person?
Yes, I said that he could.
Oh,
and but also there's also I'm going to share the Pitt UN info at newamerica.org, and that's a general email that Alberto will check and then forward anything on to me that he's not able to answer. So I'm putting that in the chat as well. I'm happy to receive responses and questions about this program. As you all might be able to tell, I'm quite passionate about it.
So if anyone has any other questions, they can type them in the chat. I'm actually not seeing any questions. So the question, is the white paper only for CUNY review, or will that be the proposal if selected? So the white paper, the limited submission is for internal CUNY review, but that will be the basis. As I said, most of the pieces of the full proposal application are part of the white paper submission. There are a few more pieces that you have to add for the complete submission. But yes, we expect that the white paper that you submit will be a fully conceptualized proposal for us to look at, which will be the basis for the complete submission. So we have some nice things to say about how Pitt can benefit society. I mean, I do think that the mission of Pitt, we're very excited about the Public Interest Technology University Network. And as I said, we're building out a website, and we hope to just re-energize our engagement with this program or project initiative over the next year and the coming years. And also, I do know that Tamara is currently planning, Katie wanted to say something, but I do know that Associate Vice Chancellor Schneider is framing our strategic initiatives or our strategic planning process for CUNY. And I do know that one of those is social justice and AI and public interest technology. So this is definitely going to be one of our strategic areas going forward. I'm sorry, Katie, yes.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to thank Andrea and New America for being such amazing partners in this, and that, this is a funding opportunity that's so unique in terms of the fact that it really hits on all those areas of interest. And we've talked a lot about building pedagogy and building resources, but that's not to short shrift their respect for more research-based projects, more evaluative kind of projects, and things that are, adding to the knowledge base that we need to, generate around the development of public interest tech. So they're very open to a wide range of approaches to this field building, but also this is a really unique opportunity to really take something and be able to look at it in a long-term way, as well as institution building. There's very rare opportunities that we get in sort of funding streams to support pedagogy development and institution building. And I just want to thank New America for seeing the value in that in terms of how we also better prepare our students for, economic opportunity.
So UpTab has a question: is there an expectation of fundamental research in the project? And no, it's research and data collection and research around public interest tech is just one of the areas that you can explore with this. I mean, as I had mentioned, there's curriculum development, there's community building, I would definitely encourage, Andreen also linked to, you can go to the website and see previously funded Pitt UN projects, and I would encourage you to look that. And I also will say, we linked to it on our limited submission page too. And I just want to encourage all of you again to read the RFP. There are very helpful FAQs, frequently asked questions. You can see former Pitt projects. All of the information is there, as well as all of us here to help you answer your questions. But no, fundamental research, it can be a project, but that's just one of many options that you can pursue in terms of developing Pitt programs and Pitt projects.
Although I'm sorry, Andrea, I just want to add though that there, like I'm working hard to ensure that there's ways in which we can measure our outcomes and, track our successes and all of that kind of stuff. So the more evaluative components of research are definitely.
Well, that is a requirement. I'm
included.
sorry.
Yeah.
That is a requirement of the Pitt UN projects. And you'll see when you look through the RFP that you do have to have, a clear methodology, and you also have to have a mechanism for measuring outcomes. I mean, that is required for all projects. So to that extent, yes, there is fundamental research that you have to measure the outcomes. You have to know that you're achieving what you set out to achieve, or we all have to know that you're achieving what you set out to achieve.
And
so
I would also like to encourage anybody who has curriculum that they think would be Pitt, in sync with Pitt. Feel free to upload your stuff to Academic Works. We're trying to build a community of sharing and curriculum. And when I went to search on Academic Works for Pitt, I saw more than what we submitted. So this is all great.
Yeah. And for any of you that are interested in Academic Works, Megan Wacha, who is presenting on June 3rd for our next Funding Friday webinar, is the Scholarly Communications Librarian for CUNY. She developed Academic Works. She is a fantastic resource, super knowledgeable. So anybody that's interested in OER and Academic Works and public resource sharing platforms, definitely you should attend that meeting and reach out to her. Well, it is 1:02. I don't see any other questions, but as I said, we are here to answer your questions, and it is a lovely Friday. And thank you so much for Andreen for joining us. Oh, wait, Ron. Oh, I'm sorry. Ron wanted to make an announcement. Sorry.
Sorry, just a really quick announcement. We are going to have a global forum next Friday, May 28th. It's about COVID-19 and equity issues around the world. We have speakers from multiple regions, multiple countries, and then the US-based speakers will also be discussing equity and access issues in US jails and prisons, migration centers, and other vulnerable communities within the United States. So I'll put the link once again here with the full program, and we'd love to see you there. It's open to everyone. Thank you.
And I will also share this chat with all the links when we post the webinar on the page. So you'll see all your questions and all the links.
Yeah, and I just also want to just let everyone know that New America is sort of the primary coordinator of the Network Challenge, but the Network Challenge is generously supported by the Ford Foundation, Hewlett Foundation, MasterCard Impact Fund through the MasterCard Center for Inclusive Growth, the Patrick J. McGovern Foundation, the Rakes Foundation, Schmidt Futures, and the Siegel Family Endowment. So just want to thank those generous funders for making this opportunity available.
Right.
I'm always excited to be able to sort of shout out the folks who are creating space for some of this innovative work. So thank you all so much for inviting me, and I'm looking forward to reading proposals.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Have a great weekend.
Thanks.
Bye.